Inflation, folks, it's on everyone's mind these days. You've probably heard about the recent Consumer Price Index, CPI, release, showing headline inflation in the US hitting 3%, a bit higher than the expected 3.8%. Now, that might not sound like a huge gap, but in the world of economics, it's raising some eyebrows. The thing is, it's not just regular inflation we're dealing with here. We've got this thing called core inflation, which strips out the wacky, unpredictable stuff. And guess what? Core inflation is sitting at 3.9% for the year 2023. So, yeah, it's not just a one-off surge, it's becoming a bit of a trend. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Ever heard of the Red Sea? Sure, it sounds like a nice vacation spot, but it's causing a lot of headaches for the global economy right now. See, there are these rebels in Yemen, the Houthi rebels, causing chaos by attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. Since December 2023, it's been one big supply chain mess. These rebels messing with ships mean increased risks, and guess who's paying for it? Shipping companies. Insurance premiums have skyrocketed from a tiny 0.007% to a whopping 1% of the ship's value. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but in the world of international trade and massive vessels, it adds up real quick. To avoid the Red Sea mess, companies are rerouting their ships. Instead of going through the Red Sea, they're taking the scenic route around the Cape of Good Hope. Sounds nice, right? Well, not for your wallet. It's causing shipping rates to shoot up. I'm talking about a 40-feet container's rate from Shanghai to the UK jumping from $2,400 to a jaw-dropping $110,000 in just a few weeks. That's not spare change, that's a significant hit. And this isn't just about expensive shipping. This Red Sea crisis is sending shockwaves through global trade. Freight costs are skyrocketing, air freight prices are climbing, and countries like Egypt are feeling the economic squeeze. Now, let's talk about stagflation. It's like the ugly cousin of inflation. Stagflation is when you get hit with both rising prices and a stagnant economy. The Red Sea crisis is creating a supply shock. Imagine suddenly having fewer goods available but prices going up. That's the worry here. It could lead to stagflation, and that's a headache for everyone. Here's another layer to the problem. Disinflation, the process of bringing down inflation, is tricky when the supply chain is in disarray. Think of it as trying to stop a leaky boat when you're in the middle of a storm, not an easy task. And right now, the focus is on reining in inflation in services, like those things you pay for but don't get a physical product, like haircuts or streaming services. The big player in all of this is the Federal Reserve. They've got a tough job right now. If they raise interest rates too high, it could slam the brakes on the economy, maybe even trigger a recession. But on the flip side, if they don't act, we might end up with inflation running wild and causing all sorts of economic chaos. Base effects are another thing to consider. It's like comparing apples to oranges, but in the world of inflation. Last year, prices might have been high, and when you compare them to this year, it might make it look like inflation is cooling off. But the reality is, even if it's slowing down a bit, it's still higher than what we're used to. And let's talk about your savings. Remember that rainy day fund you've been building? Well, it's taking a hit. Household savings are going down, and that's not good news. If inflation keeps eating away at your money, it's like trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in it, not very effective. Now, there's a debate going on about the long-term goal of 2% inflation. Some folks think maybe it's time to rethink that target. Balancing act, they call it. It's about finding the right mix, not too hot, not too cold. The fear is that if we go too hard on interest rates, we might end up in a recession. On the other hand, if we're too lax, inflation could become a permanent guest at the party. So, here we are, folks, stuck in a global economic puzzle. The Red Sea crisis, rising shipping costs, inflation knocking on the door, and the Federal Reserve trying to juggle it all without dropping the ball. It's a challenging time, and the decisions made in the coming months will ripple through your pocket and impact the overall economic landscape. Buckle up, because the ride might get a bit bumpy. Please go ahead liking, subscribing, and sharing with friends to support our content. The information is for general purposes. Viewers should conduct research and consult professionals for financial decisions.